Thank you for coming, everybody. And I know you're going to really, really enjoy today because I've spoken to obviously all the artists already and our amazing musician as well. And it's going to be fantastic. So do stay as long as you can. And the way that we're going to do things is we're going to I'm going to have a chat with Lola first, and she's going to give us a tour around her amazing studio. And then we're going to have music from Api, and then we're going to have a break at that time, but it'd be nice for you to all stay and or take your gadget wherever you are, wherever you want to go, so that you can hear the music at the same time. And then we're going to hear from the second artist, which is Yasmin. And you feel free to all sort of type away comments in the chat, and we'll keep track of those comments and ask them for you to save time. But then we'll also have space at the end for you to chat in person, put your videos back on, and talk to our guests person to person, even though it's through Zoom. So it's great that this session is going to be really international as well. So we've got two artists who have a very international focus to their work, and we've got a musician who's also got a sort of international background to her life. So as we all know, Waltham Forest is a very international place, and so that fits perfectly. So if anybody needs any help working out how to use the chat, I don't know, maybe if you can put your camera on quickly and put your hand up, then somebody will give you direct message you on the chat and help you with that. But hopefully, now that we've all been Zooming for so long, everybody knows the drill. So I'd like to introduce Lola Lely. Lola, are we going to get her onto the screen? Hi, there you are. Lovely to see you. And I'll just explain a little bit about you, and then obviously you explain more about yourself. But Lola is an artist and designer and maker who works across East London. She was born in Hanoi, Vietnam, and was raised in London and Kent. And she describes herself as a multidisciplinary designer, making furniture and household items from found materials. So that's the sustainability element, such as leather and wood and fabric. And there's a lot of dyeing with plant materials. And one thing I thought was lovely when we had a chat, Lola, was that you said you don't make art for art's sake. There has to be a reason. So perhaps tell us a bit more about yourself in your own words, and expand on that a bit.
Okay. So my name is Lola, and as Sue said, I was born in Vietnam, but came to this country at a very young age. So I was 2 when I arrived in Kent. I lived there for a few years. So maybe Laura, you can start the presentation. Maybe it's better to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Talk us through it with the presentation.
Okay, so it's a very quick presentation, but this is the Black Horse Workshop, and this was my studio for 5 years. So I actually sadly moved out just before lockdown and started working from my home studio. I trained, as my background is in actually furniture and product design, and I trained at the Royal College of Art, graduated in 2012. And took a space at the Black Horse in 2013. And so I had very, very good memories, very good time at the Black Horse Workshop. So as I don't know if anyone's been there before, but it's predominantly a woodworking workshop. So my time there, I made a lot of furniture, and this is a piece which, I've got to add that I collaborate a lot with companies and brands and other artists, but this was one of my first collaborations with a gallery called the New Craftsman, And so they commissioned me to, you know, make a series of furniture. And so what I did was, so, you know, I've always been interested in using things which, you know, are around me, things which are kind of a bit overlooked. So, you know, I can see value in things which are kind of discarded and, you know, thrown away. So with the Black Horse, there's just a lot of wood, which is, you know, is like off-cut wood, which is often unused. And I just found, like, you know, the furniture making world is quite, it can be quite wasteful. So again, people always trying to find, you know, buy the best boards, you know, bits of wood, and so there's a lot of waste that you know occurs with furniture making. So anyway, this collection was all about using offcuts basically, and I like the fact that it was a bit, you know, I'm quite into patchwork, so the whole collection was all about kind of patching wood together. And also at that time I was making my own stains, because I wasn't really kind of happy with you know, what was on the market. So I started to use indigo. If you go back, yeah, a couple of images, Laura. Yeah, so basically, so this is my patchwork collection, which used indigo to create all of these kind of different sort of patch kind of elements. And yeah, so it was about the idea of making something which, you know, in every piece was unique, just because no two, you know, I couldn't really find you know, similar pieces, and therefore, you know, all of the work was kind of had its own kind of individual character. So if you move forward 2 more slides. And so from that moment on, I was kind of quite addicted to indigo. And what was really great is, like, so just 2 doors down, there is an indigo factory where they make denim, basically, in London. So, you know, I had a long chat with them, and you know, we exchanged ideas. They gave me some off-cut fabric, and, you know, we had a lot of discussion. But at that time, I just won an artist residency at the William Morris Gallery in Walthamstow. And I was inspired by William Morris's work with indigo dyes, but also his wood blocks. And anyway, so my work, what stemmed out of that was my investigation into making my own wood blocks. And so what I did was I scoured the markets, the fruit and vegetable markets out in Walthamstow, and made my own wood blocks out of vegetables. So, you know, I use things like okra, and again, some of the textiles as well. I bound those up and turned those into wood blocks, and created my own prints and patterns using the pattern which was already inherent in the vegetable to make a pattern. So yeah, forward on another one. And so yeah, so, you know, since then, my work it's had quite a lot of my focus has been to do with of using plants, basically. So this is a residency at Selfridges a couple of years ago, and this is where I was natural dyeing in the space, and again inviting people to join me to create a collective hanging. And this is some more work. So again, it's about the patchwork. Again, I like to use kind of offcuts, things which are, again, you know, seemingly don't have, you know, another use. But again, I think it's really interesting to almost like join, you know, things together, maybe, you know, connect different materials, connecting ideas. Yeah, so that's kind of like, you know, my interest is, you know, sort of using the found, but also using different materials, and again, just creating, like, working in a very spontaneous way. Yeah, and then next one. Okay, so this is just another piece, and this was in collaboration with the Chelsea Flower Show. So 2 years ago, and so what I did was I worked with some of their suppliers to work with their flower waste. So this piece came from gathering, being donated basically, flower petals and leaves over the course of 6 months, and then creating my own natural dyes, and again creating a patchwork wall hanging, which was then exhibited at the Chelsea Flower Show. So more recently, this has been my, as I mentioned, so I'm no longer at the Black Horse Workshop anymore, sadly. But at the beginning of the year, before lockdown, I was invited to work with a charity based in Barking and Dagenham. And so this is, very, they have a very big warehouse space, and were, looking for artists who had a socially engaged practice. And there was a project that we discussed together about creating everyday objects in collaboration with residents. And so, my proposal was to work with, things which I'd been working with for a couple of years, which was beeswax and natural dyes. And so this is my, if you go forward, yeah, so here there are some, just the samples. So again, incorporating some of the natural dyes and the wax. I've been working with the residents to create a collection of handmade candles and also wax textiles. So this is just a sample of, some of the waxes that I've developed with the residents, where we're fusing it with plants in order to create natural colors. And here are some of the wax textiles samples, again, using beeswax and plant-based waxes, and then natural dyes on linen. And this is a collection of candles that we're making. So it's done in a very kind of traditional method, using green tea. So green tea is what gives the, what creates the color, and then it's beeswax. And this is some of the wax linen textiles. Okay, so here are the local residents from Barking Dagenham. So this was just a week before lockdown, and this was the first taster day. So we invited people to come along just to explore the process, try their hand at it, to see if they liked it, because the aim was to create a working cooperative where people would be able to learn a skill and also learn how to make candles and textiles and learn and earn a living London wage. So this is just now. So this was taken just about a week ago. They've had 6 weeks of training, so we could only do this since 2 months ago. And yeah, so they've learned like so much. They've been so brilliant, and at the moment are currently producing the products. Okay.
That is brilliant. Thank you.
Through that.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you, Lola. I mean, they're just such beautiful products, as well as you having this sort of whole ethos to the way that you work. It's really spectacular to see. And you're in your workshop in Barking, right? Yes. And we can see the candles behind you enticingly. And are you able to just walk us around and tell us a bit more about how you work and what you've got there?
Yep. The camera be switched. Okay. So actually, it's kind of not a true depiction of what it's really like every day here, because usually it's kind of, it's bustling and people are chatting and it's noisy and the machines are on. So it's a bit quiet here. I'm here by myself, but usually we've got 12 people working here.
Yeah.
So I'll try to be, sort of professional and try and hold my camera up so that you can sort of walk around the laptop. So hopefully I won't.
Yeah, don't trip over.
So this is the wax factory at the moment. So this was only set up 5 weeks ago, and yeah, so we've been making a lot of candles at the moment. There's been a big lots of orders recently.
Yeah, it's candle time.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
There's such beautiful colours.
Yes, so the pink is made from madder. So that's madder's a root. So the machines are very kind of, I would say they're sort of like quite DIY in a way. So this is a bain marie. And to make candles, wax has to be melted very slowly at kind of, you know, not you can't boil wax basically, so it melts at 60 degrees. And it's not on at the moment, but you can see there's 3 colours going at the moment. So that's madder, and then just plain beeswax.
Wow.
And
I'd never heard of madder before you've said it.
And these are the tools here. So these are the dipping jigs. Okay, so if I point you down here, so this is the kind of like the tools that we use. Okay, so you can see the dipping jig, you can see the wick, calipers, there's some wax there, knife. So that's very basic tools, but this is basically what we use to make the candles. And the process is like, you know, if this were on, it's quite sort of slow. So to make these dining candles, it takes about 30 dips, and it's like going in like very slowly and pulling out from the wax very slowly as well, until you build up the desired width. So that's like 30 dips here. And these are some of the fun twisted candles.
So, excuse my cough, everybody. Kirsten says there are different shades of pink. Some are light and some are darker. Are they all madder? And how do you control the depth of colour?
Yes, they're all madder. So it's just based on concentration. So the more madder that you have in the wax, then the darker the colour. So I can just walk around here. So I can just show you. Oh. So at the moment, this is some R&D at the moment, just lots of different sort of wax colour palettes here. So let's say, so that's just sort of different concentration of the madder dye. So madder has to be boiled and extracted, and then it's crushed and it's turned into a paste and then mixed with some jojoba oil and then added to the beeswax.
And did you learn all these techniques when you were studying, or have you learnt them as you've gone along for yourself? And
yes, just along the way, experimentation. So it started out with the textiles, and then I've just sort of tried to transfer it to another material. Okay, so this is the rest of the factory here. Lots of candles everywhere. It's a bit messy, I'm afraid.
It's a workshop.
I know, we were working quite late last night, that's why. And yeah, some sort of 2 dye baths going. So this is for the dyeing the wax linen.
Is that for things like food wraps and?
Yes, yeah. So there you go. There's some stuff here. That's the linen stuff.
Lovely.
There you go.
And are you selling through local outlets, or do you sell direct, or how does the?
Yeah, so we have an online shop, but also have about 60 retailers selling our products. And this has all happened since lockdown. So yeah, it's worked really well.
So all of the wax making has been a lockdown. You weren't doing it before lockdown?
No.
Wow, you're a lockdown success.
I suppose so.
That's great. Somebody else said, Sandy said, beautiful work. Where did you research the historic techniques to discover the different dyes?
I have a lot of reading, basically, a lot of reading, but also sometimes you just have to experiment. So having that time over lockdown and just working from my kitchen, yeah, I don't know, it's just trial and error. But there are some really good books out there, but sometimes I think you just have to kind of evolve a bit and use whatever is available. So, you know, because some recipes are sort of quite toxic now for modern usage. So yeah, I've kind of adapted my own recipes.
You when we spoke, you talked about the sort of comparison to cooking.
Yeah.
Is it the same sort of process where you experiment in cooking and you're just experimenting in the workshop?
You just don't taste it, that's all. Yeah.
Yes. Poppy says, are all of the candles beeswax, or have you experimented with other materials?
Yes, so we experiment with rose wax and green tea wax. And yeah, there's lots of other waxes and also orange wax. So lots of waxes, byproduct kind of waxes from other industries.
Yeah. So do you source those? How do you source both the wax and the plants that you resource? How do you get enough of a quantity to keep you going?
Yeah, so at the moment I'm working with two labs, so one in Germany, and they are, sort of, research and development and manufacturers of wax. So they have loads of knowledge. And so I've been working a lot with them, and they send samples for me to test out, because usually, their waxes kind of are for the cosmetic industry, but nobody's been sort of working with these waxes in candle making. So, having lots of really interesting kind of discussions with them, and also another company based in the UK as well. And again, they work with the cosmetic industries. They've been really open and generous with their information, and really good at sort of like letting me try new samples out. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, this collaboration is, really, for me, it's quite key to my work, because it allows me to work with experts, and, try things out and get knowledge which I wouldn't necessarily know myself. But also, it's quite a nice partnership, because they're excited by, a different use of their products. And also it's kind of, they're learning, well, we're both learning on both sides quite a lot. So yeah, it's that kind of, kind of cross exchange, which has really helped to kind of further my interest in my work.
Yeah, because in the slides you showed about the textile work that you do as well. And so the dyes that you use in that are presumably very different to the dyes that you're using in the wax products.
No, they're the same.
Oh, are they?
Yes.
Okay. Because I mentioned about roots and bark and soil and minerals.
Yes.
Is that the same in both types of products then?
Well, I would say the textiles is more advanced, because I've spent 5 years working with textiles, and the candles so it's following on. So I have transferred lots of my knowledge from textiles to the candles, and again trying things out. So madder root I use in the textiles, but also in the candles. The green tea again is used in the textiles, but also in the candles. And then just sort of like slowly trying out other things which I've been using with the textiles. But again, sometimes, it fuses well with the wax, and sometimes it doesn't. But even if it doesn't create a color, it can create a beautiful scent. So sometimes I'm interested in the smell of things as well.
Got a couple more questions here. So Elizabeth, who works at Forest Recycling Project, which I think I mentioned to you, Lola, she says lovely colours. She'd love to experiment with candle making. I think you two should hook up after this, because you've got so much in common. And Penny says, do you still have to fix the dyes like you do if it's being used with textiles?
Yes, I do. Oh, sorry, in candles?
Sorry?
In candles or in textiles?
So I think she's talking about candles. Do you still have to fix the dyes like you do if it's being used with textiles?
No.
Okay, I'm presuming that's a correct interpretation of that question. Oh yeah, Penny, yes, she says in candles. And then Morag says, do you have partners who grow the plants for the dyes?
Yes, I work with a woman who has a dye farm in Somerset.
Oh wow, nice. Wow, never heard of a dye farm.
Well, she does. She grows madder.
Right, brilliant. Anna May says, are you open to training other groups in other boroughs?
Yes, absolutely.
Brilliant. Yeah, there's a lot of people here who obviously might who are working all over the place, so that I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest. Elizabeth says, I've got some seeds to grow madder. Do I just need a bit of space and garden, or do they need something special? Do you know?
Yes, you need a lot of space because it's the roots and they can kind of be quite invasive.
Uh-huh. So I know from our chat before you mentioned about working at Chelsea Flower Show.
Yeah.
That was must have been an interesting experience. Is that something you can tell us a bit about?
Yeah, it was really, I mean, again, I hadn't never visited Chelsea Flower Show before, and so the commission was a really nice opportunity to kind of connect to with some of the suppliers that they work with, or the people who exhibit at the show. And I just didn't realize that there was just so many varieties of plants, but also the amount of wastage as well, because obviously it's an ephemeral it's an ephemeral product, I would say. And again, it's after there's so many it's just it's so seasonal that a flower can bloom for a week, and then that's it. Are gone. So I asked them to then send me all of their kind of sort of dead flower heads so that I could dry it out and use that for my dyes. And the response was really positive, and I just had abundant of materials which I use and have still got. Yeah, so it was a nice project, and also to be able to create something out of, I guess, rubbish or nothing. Was something which they hadn't really done before, and for me it was almost like something that I was do a lot in my practice, but for them, and then exhibiting the work and having not participants but visitors asking about the work, but not necessarily knowing that it was made from the very things which plants that they were seeing around in the show. And also sometimes the colors of plants can be quite kind of they don't always necessarily give you the color that you once you dye it, it's not that color at all. It can change color. So and also I had an open studio there where I kind of invited visitors to come and try their hand at dyeing, and it was I think it kind of gave people a bit of respite from just sort of the usual thing of going around and kind of just sort of discovering new varieties of roses, what have you. For them to get hands-on and just sort of take a breather from that kind of the busyness of that show was
absolutely. I mean, when I went there, I was very aware of the amount of waste as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an incredible exhibition, isn't it? Where people are, but so temporary, I mean, and inevitably there's, flowers and plants are fragile, aren't they? And it really, really upset me actually that I could see that after the exhibition, everything would just be being dumped, presumably. So it'd be wonderful to think that, you've got that project going. And is that something you're going to do again?
I would love to, but of course Chelsea was cancelled last year. So
yeah.
But it's even during the show, like every night they would replenish, the plants so that they'd have like fresher kind of, flowers, so they're like absolutely perfect. So they were just wasted the whole time.
Yeah, and all those flowers come from all over, far and wide, all over the world, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I suppose that brings us a little bit to sort of the point of today's whole webinar, is to look at the link between art and artists who are aware of sustainability and their response to climate change. So is that, obviously everything that you're doing is reusing and thinking in that sort of more holistic, sustainable way. How can you explain to us a bit more about how that became an element of your work?
I just think with my design education, it was kind of it was ingrained in us. I don't think it was something which I sort of decided that I was going to be the artist who was only going to make work with kind of waste. I just think it was like I love all colors, and I fascinated with kind of how like raw materials and how things are made. But I think it was just my education where it was like it was yeah, it was something we always, you know, we were expected to think about as, you know, artists and designers, to kind of think about like the bigger picture, and you know, so that's kind of something which I sort of carried, you know, with me after I graduated. And also, you know, when you graduate, you don't often have, you know, that much money to buy sort of new resources, what have you. So it's that idea of, you know, sort of make do with, you know, and to be resourceful was something kind of just sort of, you know, something that I you know, it just, you know, it was a reality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also afterwards I thought, yeah, again, I guess where, you know, you see a lot of waste and on all this consumption, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of a bit, you know, it's a bit awful. So therefore, you know, I try to yeah, I try to make work which I, you know, think that, you know, which I like myself, but also I think that people will enjoy using. And at the moment now, you know, I'm sort of working with this collective of local residents who are embarking. And, you know, again, it's like, it's sort of, you know, trying to instill some of, you know, my kind of, you know, some of my knowledge, but also some of my values, and trying to explain to, you know, to them as well, like, you know, where things come from, because a lot of the people I'm working with now don't necessarily come from, they don't come from a design background or have access to, you know, some of this knowledge. And for them, you know, they really enjoy working with the materials because, you know, it smells really good, and, you know, it's kind of, it's you know, it's very tactile, and, you know, so you know, I'm really kind of pleased that, you know, people are really enjoying making the products, and also it's kind of making them understand that, you know, it's an expensive product, but it's expensive for a reason, and that's because, you know, I mean, relatively expensive for its kind, because, you know, it takes, you know, it's quite a labor intensive process, and you know, some of the materials that have been used aren't, you know, are, you know, we can sort of, you know, I know where they're sourced, and you know, you can't get it in like a big quantity.
Amy has asked, is the wax waste?
No, the wax is not. It's a byproduct. So, for example, the green tea wax and the rose wax that I use, they're byproducts of another industry, and also the orange wax as well. So, for example, the orange wax is a byproduct of the orange juice industry. So again, with lots of plants, they contain wax. So the leaves or the skin contains wax. So once it's boiled, like for many hours, the wax floats to the top and it gets skimmed off, and that turns into wax, basically.
But if you didn't use it, would it be thrown away? Or
yeah.
Yeah. Or is there another use for it, that byproduct? Do other companies buy it for another usage?
Not really. So the company that I'm working with, based in Germany, they're developing some of this stuff, and again, they don't have a market for it at the moment. So, but they really would like to encourage people to find a way to use it, and they think there might be use for it in the cosmetic industry, because now cosmetic industries are all about kind of, you know, natural ingredients, things which are kind of a bit more sustainable. So, you know, there is a potential route there, but again, there aren't any takers at the moment. So when I kind of approached them and talked about, you know, my natural dyes and working with wax, they were, you know, they jumped at the opportunity to share some of their knowledge and to provide me with samples.
Brilliant. So I missed one from Penny. She said, have you tried onion skins or avocado skin?
For the candles or for the textiles?
I'm not sure. Maybe sure.
Yes, I have for textiles, yeah.
And Nisha says, is there soy in these candles? I can't see it listed on the ingredients, but just checking, as I'd love to buy some.
No, there's no soy. I do have some soy, but soy is a bit problematic. So I don't really like to use soy, but there are other waxes as well, plant-based waxes, which are really lovely. So some berry waxes are really great, because I don't know, soy is a bit of a industry, and not very ethical.
Yeah, I think that's probably her point. So people have been coming up with the idea of an E17 flower show.
Oh yeah.
So apparently Borrowed Light, which is a florist on Hoe Street, have done a fringe version. I'm not sure if that's in Walthamstow or at Chelsea. And of course there's a fringe at Chelsea Flower Show. And then there's been a debate about Indigo and Woad. Woad is the one Vikings used to be more fearful in battle, Elizabeth says. And perhaps it's to do with the location that it's grown. Indigo only grows in the warmer climate and Woad in colder areas. Would you agree?
I agree, yeah. So I do use Woad as well. And they do give quite slightly different blues. So Woad is a little bit more turquoise in colour. And Indigo is a lot deeper. There's a lot more of a kind of stronger, deeper blue. Brilliant.
Right, I realise I have actually gone over my time by 5 minutes. We've had an extra 5 minutes. So we'll have to draw a line here, but we're going to all come back together at the end, and if people have got more questions, then we'll bring them in at the end. But it's been so wonderful looking around your studio and hearing about your work, and so impressed with the way that you are not just doing beautiful artwork, but working so closely with the community. And I think a lot of people on this webinar are going to be really interested in that element of it. Yeah, Nisha says she's working in community development in Barking, so she'd love to get in touch with you, Lola. And everybody's loved it, so thank you so much, and we'll see you later. It's been lovely. So I'm going to introduce you all to Api now. And Api Ascaso is a Spanish musician who's travelled to India, Peru, the Canary Islands and Scotland, and now of course she lives in the best place in the world. She lives in Walthamstow. So she's a local, but she's got a very international perspective, and originally trained as a classical pianist, and then discovered the power and versatility of her voice through live performances, and became a multi-instrumental singer and songwriter. And I know that environmental issues and community are very much woven into your life, aren't they, Api, as well as your music?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Hello, everybody.
Lovely to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So would you like to just say whatever else you want to say to sort of introduce yourself before you start playing? Yes. And then you're going to play for a little while, but we'd love everybody to sort of just don't lose the opportunity of listening to Api's music while you make your cup of tea. Take your gadget with you, because it is just so beautiful. But tell us a bit more about your story, Api.
Thank you, Sue. Hello, everybody. So my name is Api, and I live here in Walthamstow. I am a pediatric occupational therapist, so that's my job, and I work for the NHS, so it's very busy times. And but I'm also a musician. Yes, you said I'm a pianist, and I love drums. And I'm just, I think that we have all kind of questioned ourselves, what is that we love doing, and what is that keeps us alive during quarantine. And certainly for me, it's music. So I've been, just using my time, like learning new instruments and playing more and writing songs and writing poems. And it's been very productive. But I think the video that you saw before is because we started this project with my music colleague that I'm missing so much today, Lyle Bar. And she's also a Wolfhamstower. And she plays the viola di gamba, which is like a violoncello, that is the old version. It's a beautiful instrument, and we found a way to rehearse in her balcony. So we were ready to record an album, and we are recording now the album, so it's super exciting. So we'll come out soon. And actually we decided to call the album Being Alive, because we think that it's a topic that is it's just right in these times that we are going through.
Absolutely. And I mean, that came through so beautifully in your video. You know, there you are in lockdown, but you're very much alive. You know, there is just life on that balcony in all its forms, isn't there?
Indeed. And I think we all try to cling to those things that make you feel right, no? Like things that help you to cope. And music certainly is a big part for us, creativity.
Yeah. And what about the environmental side to your life?
Well, I'm a cyclist. And
does it inform your music?
Surely, yeah. I mean, the music that I do is very, I always say this type of meditative music, which talks a lot about the social issues. So it's very kind of music that connects to the elements, to the earth, to what we are doing here. So I've got, I don't know, songs like sometimes I watch the news and you feel like you can't do anything about it, and then off I go, I grab an instrument, I sing about the refugee crisis or about climate change or things like that. So yeah, today actually I'm going to sing two songs. The first one is maybe we can talk after about the shamanic drum, but I made my own shamanic drum. And the first song talks about that, about like sometimes you feel like you're insignificant and yet you are part of the big puzzle. You are essential, as insignificant as essential. And we think about, we question ourselves about what is our contribution to this life, to this textile, to this web. And yeah, it's kind of like songs of the earth and beyond, cycles of life. I mean, I will sing in Spanish, but basically it's about this idea of that, like when I was making the shamanic drum and you are actually touching the skin of an animal and the hide, and it's like it brought so much. Like it was like a very deep experience, and yeah, well, it talks about this, about this, the skin of a deer being now here, my drum, and I truly connecting with the animal, the energy of the animal, and how it carries on. How she in a way helps me to create this song that hopefully will fire someone else to do something else. It's just a cycle after cycle. So. Beautiful.
Well, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. Are you okay do you want to play now? Yes. Or you want to explain the second one before you go on?
I'll talk to you about the second one before I play. Yeah?
Okay.
Fantastic. So I will have to mute myself and share on.
Api, you shared the screen rather than the sound. I don't know if you can. Yay.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes. And this is the gorgeous shamanic drum. Cantos de la tierra y más allá. Caminando adelante sin parar, ciclos de la vida seguirán. Tu piel en mi tambor resonará, cantos de la tierra y más allá. Caminando adelante sin parar, ciclos de la vida seguirán. Tu piel en mi tambor resonará, cantos de la tierra y más allá. Cantos de la tierra. Caminando al mundo sin parar. Ciclos de la vida seguirán. Tu piel en mi tambor resonará. Cantos de la tierra y más allá. Caminando al mundo sin parar. Ciclos de la vida seguirán. Tu piel en mi tambor resonará. Cantos de la tierra y más allá. Cantos de la tierra y más allá. Cantos de la tierra y más allá.
Wow, Api, that was beautiful.
The earth and beyond. We are as insignificant as essential. Going to sing a second song. Can you hear me well? Yeah? I hope you can. Thank you. So this song came before lockdown, and it's called Terra. Terra is the Latin name for tierra in Spanish, or earth. here in the UK, and in English. And it talks about, funnily enough, about we are Terra. It's like many times we talk about the earth, and it seems like there's this connection about Mother Nature and us, or the earth and us. Like we are earth. So it talks about, it's again in Spanish, but the first part says, when I am in the sea, and I let myself float, then I feel your flow. Or like as elephants, when I step on the ground and I feel your grounding energy. Or when I go very high pitch, I go, it was like when I scream, you know, imagine you are on top of the mountain and you scream and you see, you know, the poetry in action. You see the valleys, you know, it's just poetry in action. So I thought it was very special to sing this song today, very appropriate. And this will be one of the songs that will come up in the album with the new project, Which One? So I hope you hear about it soon. Okay. Terra. We are Terra. Cuando nado en el mar y me dejo flotar y tus olas me atrapan, siento tu flujo Terra cuando piso elegante mortal, dibujando el camino que ancestros armaron de terra, terra, terra. Te respeto, terra. Yo te honro, te venero. Yo soy terra, 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 terra. Te respeto, terra. Te amamanto, te desnudo, yo soy terra. Sobre el valle y el cañón que tus penas limaron, poesía en acción de terra. Cuando rompo mi piel y descupo tu fuego y me fundo en la lava que destruye mi miedo.
Wow, that was amazing, wasn't it? That was amazing. You should see the comments, Api. Huge applause we have. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Everybody's just completely blown away. That's one of the most fantastic elements of my lockdown, I have to say. I think everybody might agree. And my favorite comment during your performances was from Eleni, who said, you need to move next door and just practice all day.
Okay, where do you live?
Oh yeah, thank you so much, Api. I mean, when you look at those comments, you'll realize how much that was appreciated, and I'm so sorry that we have to leave you, but it's wonderful. Maybe
I hope there will be more opportunities in the future, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue.
All right, well, hopefully you can chat later. But now we're going to move on to our third guest, which is Yasmin Ostendorf. Yasmin, are you there? So I'm just going to introduce you. Oh, you are. I can't see you. I can. Ah, there you are, Yasmin. Hi. So nice to have you here. Thank you. Welcome. So Yasmin, you're a curator, a writer, and a researcher, and you describe yourself as a bridge builder, which is lovely. And I think it sounds like we've got 3 bridge builders on the webinar we're doing today. And since 2009, you've been undertaking research across Asia, Latin America, and Europe on artists proposing ways of living and working, and ways that ultimately shape more sustainable, interconnected, and resilient communities, which is what we're all about, I think. And you're the founder of Green Art Lab Alliance, and you're going to tell us all about that. And one particularly interesting bit of it, I think you're going to focus on, is the Future Materials Bank. But I understand it's much more than that. And also you've got a very international perspective, haven't you? But the one thing that stood out from our chat was that you, in terms of the sustainability alternatives you are working with, you said that everything is about beauty, and I think that's just so crucial, isn't it? You know, we want to live in a sustainable way, work in a sustainable way, have sustainable art, but it's got to be beautiful.
Definitely, yeah. I
So
don't know.
welcome.
I feel like I'm still a little bit on a different planet because of the music.
I know, wasn't it incredible?
It's very weird to make this shift.
Yeah.
To talk about something else. No, I'm super impressed, and I mean, talking about beautiful, I mean, there you go. It's I feel super honored and happy to be part of this incredible lineup. Also, Lola, super inspiring work. Really exciting.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there anything you want to add to that introduction, or do you just want to talk us through with your slides and sort of go through that way?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, there's a lot of things I could speak about. So I think I'm just gonna bombard you a little bit, different style.
That's fine.
With a lot of different projects, and then perhaps maybe after in the chats, people can ask like, oh, I want to know a little bit more about this or about that, so that I can make it also kind of tailor-made to kind of what you're interested in, because I can imagine there's people also with different interests in the audience.
Yeah. Great. So Laura, are you going to put Yasmin's slides up? Yeah, she is. Great. So the whole thing is in this, under this umbrella of the Green Art Lab Alliance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's kind of the starting point. And we started actually in 2012 to kind of unite different art organizations who were in pursuit of social and environmental justice, and there was a growing awareness of, well, the carbon footprint also of the cultural sector, but kind of a lack of knowledge at the time. So the nuts and bolts kind of stuff about water, waste, energy, and mobility. There was a desire to reduce this kind of carbon impact, but not so many practical tools around. And actually, Julie's Bicycle in the UK was a key partner in the beginning to kind of start disseminating this knowledge. And that was a European project so we started as a European project. And then actually after a few years, you here see the picture of our Asian partners. After a few years, what I strongly felt is that the discourse in Europe was a lot about science and technology and innovation and your carbon footprint. And I had a kind of desire to think more about our kind of, not per se just reducing carbon footprint, but also increasing kindness footprints, like kindness for the earth and for each other, and as a, to operate more like a, actually, I mean, the word mycelium is gonna fall a little bit later too, but also to operate like a mycelium, you know, the mushroom network, which is kind of decentralized, redistributing of resources based on mutually beneficial exchange. And I think particularly working in a very international context, because we've grown with 30 more partners, so we are 45 now, and 15 in Asia, 15 in Latin America. Here you see the Latin American partners waving. I think it's also very important to be aware of kind of this symbiosis, so where the collaboration is really mutually beneficial, and being super aware, of course, of colonial histories and what the idea of help in that sense kind of means. So yeah, we are kind of organized in various different ways. We work in so-called partner working groups. We have about 8 groups. One of them is the water group, as you see the image here. In the groups, the different partners kind of find each other to collaborate. So we have a group on ecocide, for instance. So how, as an artist or as a arts organization, you can become a steward of nature and represent nature in courts, but also on materials. And well, with the water group, one of our most recent kind of actions was the series of, or the beginning of the series of water walks, which basically kind of gathers people all around the world, all our partners, but also just everyone, to walk towards waters as a kind of, whether that's rivers, lakes, ocean, seas, glaciers, as a kind of silent protest in the run-up to the next COP. And everyone's making little videos, and that's going to be compiled into a kind of longer film raising awareness about water. I just wanted to read this little quote by a book that's been super influential for me, called Mushroom at the End of the World, on the possibility of life in capitalist ruins, where I think a lot of my kind of fungal thinking also comes from. Yeah, I'll just read it. We hear about precarity in the news every day. People lose their jobs or are angry because they never had them. Gorillas and river porpoises hover at the edge of extinction. Rising seas swamp whole Pacific islands, but most of the time we imagine such precarity to be an exception to how the world works. It's what drops out of the system. What if, as I'm suggesting, precarity is the condition of our time? Or to put it another way, what if our time is ripe for sensing precarity? What if precarity, interdeterminacy, and what we imagine as trivial are at the center of the systematicity we seek? So I think this idea of, I mean, what we've also seen with the pandemic and how that is connected also to climate change, to deforestation, to loss of habitat of species. Yeah, we kind of collectively see it, this precarity at the center also of our future, and therefore the need for collaborative survival and a need to do this together. Maybe the next slide. Yeah, so of course with expanding and collaborating with more partners in different countries, of course that comes with a lot of new geographies, come also with new complexities, and the partners also have very different profiles. So it's been a huge kind of also learning process for myself. This is just a little extract from a text that I wrote that I won't go into so much at the moment. So maybe if we go to the next. Yeah, one thing that we really try to do as an alliance, as a knowledge alliance, is to build resources for, well, the partner organizations and the people that we work with. So all artists who are concerned with environmental issues and are looking for tools and knowledge to increase their impact, or otherwise strengthen their practice. So this is an overview of some of the practical resources that we've been developing. So they are mappings of called creative responses to sustainability in different countries. So they look into what are the main challenges for these organizations. A lot of them are really grassroots, and what does the funding system in that country look like, who are the important players, but also like real policy advice in how they can be better supported. So in that sense, we were quite interdisciplinary. So with ecocide, with environmental lawyers, but also working with policymakers next to the artists and designers and more the creative field. If we can go to the next one. And then one of these resources that is more recent is what we call the Future Materials Bank. We call it a Future Materials Bank because basically it's an inventory of materials that we consider to be future proof, or that we would like to see still existing in our future. If we could go to the next slide. It started, as you see here, as a physical, really material inventory, looking at glues and polymers and pigments and dyes, biomaterials, eco-synthetics, and textiles and fibers. And it was also, there's actually two more categories, looking at oils and glazes, and also mapping our locality. I'm gonna just point out, or if we can go one back, point out a few materials that you see here. One of the things that was crucial for this material bank, like I said, was mapping this locality. So the clay that you see at the top was actually just from digging a 3-meter deep hole in our garden and see if the clay was suitable to fire, which it was, which was very exciting. The textiles that you see are just also from plants in the garden. Not all were per se dye plants, but it was also experimenting with different plants that we have in the garden. You see cellulose here, you see leather made out of blood, You see algae, and you see different types of mycelium. So mycelium fed with different food, let's say. So the one that you see in the middle is fed with the rice kernels, the thing that's around the rice. But we also have mycelium fed by oats, and a few different ones. And then, just as this beautiful collection kind of, it's never ready, but as we had, I don't know, maybe 100 materials, the pandemic broke out, and at least this is my office. My office, of course, had to close, just like all the other art centers. And if we go to the next slide, because what we then did is, like what a lot of people did, is focus more also on the online bits. So we uploaded the different materials that we had, but then we also decided to make it open source. So really for people to upload their material projects, materials that they consider to be, again, future proof. And what's interesting is that we started inviting all these 45 international partners who are in Mongolia, in Korea, in India, in Panama, in Mexico, and all different places in the world, on these 3 different continents. And so this is really something that we try to expand on and stimulate, that it's not just a material bank per se about new materials, but it can also include older techniques, and a diversity in that sense. If we can go to the next slide, maybe. So basically you can browse these different categories. We have a lexicon, because in talking about kind of in this sector of materials, it very quickly becomes very specialized. So we made our own lexicon, kind of saying what we mean with something, a term like, I don't know, biotech or sustainable or vegan or whatever it might be. Collections is where we invite people to highlight different materials from their perspective. So this is kind of still work in progress, still working on it, but you can imagine, like, one of the collections we're working on is a sea collection, so only materials that come from the sea, whether that's like let's say mussel shells, material from mussel shells, or fishbone glue. And we're making a collection on the Maya forest garden, so only materials made from the plants from the Maya forest garden. So that's the tomato, corn, avocado, and another one slips my mind. If we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and so it means that people can really upload their materials after they have checked out the policy, and the policies where we ask also a lot of questions about the afterlife of the material, the social conditions in which it was made. And I think I often get the question how the bank differentiates itself from other material banks, because obviously it's not something new and there's already a lot of material banks. But I think the difference is that this one is really focused on an artistic practice. So in that sense, what is a material for an artist, that's much broader than what a material can be for an architect. But also a lot of material banks are often to kind of bridge that gap between the maker and the industry, or the maker and the company. And this is much more between maker and maker. So it's not so much per se for always wanting to scale up or for it to be, you know, commercially viable, but much more on sharing knowledge on your process, if you're looking for collaborations, yeah, and it being a continuous work in progress. Materials that are on it now, for instance, we had a big discussion if we wanted to include recycled plastics for the moment, because I mean, ideally in this future, we don't see the recycled plastics, but we have put them on for now because there is still this type of waste also. And there is a lot of materials on there that are made out of animal products, whether that's beeswax or what I said, a fishbone leather or a fishbone glue, or a leather made of abattoir blood. Yes, we are including it now, but maybe in a year time we will review and say, okay, we don't consider this to be future proof anymore. So hopefully kind of over time we also become more radical, let's say. If we can go to the next slide. Yeah, here are just a few more examples. Yeah, cow bone, eelgrass, Scoby leather, beautiful material made out of cow intestines. The walnut oil is often used for making a natural oil paint. So yeah, you mix it with pigments that are often made out of like rock and soil and earth. Some beautiful colors. And if you mix them with the walnut oil, you get a great alternative for yeah, well, you get oil paint basically. But we also have water-based and also not an alternative to turpentine, for instance. So that is based on citrus. If we could go to the next slide. Yeah, I just wanted to highlight this one because I think it's extremely beautiful, and it's also from one of our partners in Valdivia in the south of Chile, and they are really connected also to their locality and their own indigenous territory of the Mapuche people. And this is also, the maqui tree is a really important tree within that culture. If we go to the next one, there will also be a little bit of information. Yeah, like I said, about the process, about, you know, the material itself. Is it native? What is it based on ancestral knowledge? Yeah, just kind of more information about it, and also ways to then find the maker. If we go to the next one. How am I for time? Shall I continue, or because
well, we've just been having a little chat to say that we're going to run over,
yeah,
and everybody seems to be very happy about that. So
really, so
I think I don't know if you can tell how many slides you've got left.
I think it's 2 more. If I
okay,
remember.
that's fine.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, lovely,
but
great.
Because this project requires a little bit more of an explanation. Because it's actually it's a project called Mijn Kool by a Belgian artist, and he makes anthotypes. And so, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with anthotypes, but basically it's using natural materials as photographic emulsions. So, you know, there's different natural materials that you can use as photographic emulsion, including coffee, but also red cabbage. And he did a project in Genk, in city area in Belgium, where he also worked with the community to grow their own cabbages in their gardens and in their areas. And they learned how to then use this as a photographic emulsion, but then also worked with a team of scientists, like how you can actually analyze the quality of the soil based on the color of the image that you get. So if you go to the next image, you'll be able to see like what kind of photography you would get from the red cabbage. But then, yeah, work with the team to also learn about the quality of your own backyard, basically, based on an image that you have, which I think is quite incredible. I also organize food art film festivals where farmers and beekeepers and artists and people come together. And here we organized also Toast to the Anthropocene, where people were invited to then drink basically their photographic emulsion. So the cabbage juice, but at the same time also knowing actually, what's in there, the lead or the minerals, and realizing that it's actually not per se healthy. So there was a bit of tension there, which I thought was quite interesting. People, and you learned this skill of doing photography, but also learning about understanding quality of your soil. And then the last one is Diana Scheider, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I think this is a beautiful project. We have her material in the bank too. She's a Dutch artist, and she does plant root weaving. I think it was actually at the V&A also. She made a dress out of these plant roots, and yeah, it's an incredible technique that she uses. But basically, it's open source. We invite people to upload, to read the policy, and then if they think, this is me, upload their materials. It's very easy through a form. And then we're there also to make connections. I've already been asked by quite a few people if we're going to have exhibitions with the Future Materials Bank, which we hope, educational programs. So I think there's a lot of potential there for more collaboration and knowledge sharing.
Definitely. I don't know if you know, we've got a fantastic organic growing cooperative in Waltham Forest called Organically, and Poppy, who and lots of us have been sort of involved in one way or another, and she said she reckons Organically would really love your work.
Great.
And somebody else said that actually there is somebody there who's doing something similar with potatoes, and Rosalind Fowler. So you should definitely hook up.
I'll write it down.
Yeah, well, we'll put you in touch for sure. And Carolyn says early silent films were dyed in this way. Did you know that?
Yeah.
But I love the idea of cabbages as photographic emulsion.
Coffee is also a good one.
Right.
Yeah, there's I wrote a little article. I write for this blog called Artists and Climate Change, and I also once wrote about like
I think I put the link into Artists and Climate Change, so people have that.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
That's so interesting. And I mean, just again, such beauty out of waste. Well, sometimes waste, sometimes just natural materials, and you see the real beauty in them, don't you, when you've got them in your bank. But I'd never come across the concept of a materials bank, but it is.
I mean, it's a big thing for designers and architects,
right.
but less so for the arts. And it's interesting because for designers, often the development of a material is the goal in itself. So it's more about the research and the process, while as for the artist, the artwork is the goal in the end. So the perspective on the material is very different, and that also means that the incentive for collaboration is often a lot bigger, because the point is not to work per se, at least to scale it up. It can be, of course, but so there's more space therefore for experimentation and research. And
Carolyn says, how wonderful when all these materials finally trickle down into the mainstream stroke commercial, so they can be used for furniture and clothing, and that all the researchers, including current students and academics, all get jobs to help them. We still need to use the waste wherever it comes from, though. For example, recycled yogurt pots or as tabletops, etc. So I think that is fair. And Francesca says, it's so interesting. Thank you. It's heartening to know that so many artists are experimenting with sustainable materials in their work. It really is. I mean, this whole hour and a half, or however much, a bit over, has just been, there's the key strands there's been key strands that have come out of it. And for me, one of it is internationalism, because here we are in Walthamstow, but we are now living in a very global society, as we all know, and you guys are all working around the world, which is amazing. One of it is collaboration, which comes as part of that, I suppose, and obviously sustainability, because that's the whole focus of the webinar. And that's amazing that you're just incorporating sustainability in such an imaginative and innovative way. And then the final one is beauty, I suppose. I mean, just all so beautiful. So thank you for sharing your work with us, Yasmin. And Morag says, mind-boggling to think about how some of these materials find their way into creative projects. We hear a lot about mycelium in our growing communities here, and how it's used as a creative material, and now we've seen it, which is great. So we're at 7 minutes past 4, so I think we have to start wrapping up. Laura, do you want to put everybody into a sort of big grid of video and non-mutedness, or
I've had to fiddle with the settings today because we didn't use the webinar format, so I think everyone can join with their camera if they wish to, and unmute themselves and ask, get to know each other a bit afterwards. That would be lovely if you'd like to. But I think, yeah, should we thank all of our speakers first? And
absolutely, use the real clapping. We don't need to use the emojis. You were all amazing. Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you all, and I think I know everybody has enjoyed it so much, haven't they? Because the chat is full of appreciation. So Lola, Api and Yasmin, thank you. And I'm sure that Laura and Morag will want to see more of you, hear more of you, and make sure that you're a big part of the E17 Art Trail Artillery family.
And yes, I appreciate our speakers and musicians, performers. If you would like to go, you are not obliged to stay, but we just offer this space because it's so lovely to connect with each other and try and recreate those moments where we spark new ideas for new projects a little. But so you're welcome to stay and chat, or go and get yourselves refreshed. But honestly, it's such a treat to hear from you all, and I know my head's brimming with ideas, so I hope all of yours are too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to be really cheeky because I've got a burning question that to Yasmin. Yasmin, do you have a moment longer?
Of course, go for it.
I'm really curious how mycelium is used as a creative material instead of kind of food, for growing fungi that we eat. So it's fascinating how all these different materials have got these other creative possibilities to me, and I'd be curious to know who's been doing what with mycelium, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment it's incredibly popular, actually.
Really?
Yeah, totally. There's from the artist side, just making it yourself, because you can just have like kits for yourself where you mold it in certain ways, because basically you have the fungal strains and you feed them, whether that's with oats or with another material, and they keep on growing, until you stop feeding them, and basically then they die. But then you have them in the fungal strains at least, so they don't continue to grow. But you have this shape that, I mean, the molds that you use, that shape is the mycelium then. So in a way, it's kind of a compressed block if you would just use very, very simple molds. So that's why it's even used in architecture, but also packaging. For instance, on a bigger scale, there's a company called Evocative. Oh no, Evocative. I think it's called like this.
Evocative, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So they are like one of the bigger players. Oh yeah, I have the website here too. Yeah, so that's that. They also do a lot of paste it here, a lot of packaging. But then there is also a few years ago at PS1 MoMA mycelium, there was a big actually building. By the living. I'm just gonna send the link to that too, just to show like the diversity of stuff that you could make.
Sorry, I had to go and answer the door. I'm really interested about packaging you mentioned, because I did a sustainable packaging project for a fashion brand. And so, sorry, Yasmin, what were you saying about packaging?
That mycelium is increasingly used also for it.
Sorry, you're on mute, Yasmin.
No, she's okay.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I can hear her.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
I can hear you.
Oh, I don't think Kirsten can.
Kirsten.
I can hear you too. Kirsten herself is off.
Kirsten, put yourself.
Well, anyway, if you go to the, I never know if you say ecovative or ecovative.
Yeah.
To that website, there you will find a lot of examples of mycelium packaging. But you see, wow. with a lot of, even us. I think it was Stella McCartney, and some big designers are really looking into the possibilities of it. But it doesn't need to be like a high-end thing. It's really also something that you can do at home.
Thank you. Great, thanks.
That's fascinating. We've got some real mushroom growing enthusiasts here, and I don't know if I've never heard them quite make the link, but I think it's opened a door to me. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely really also recommend everyone, not just Mushroom at the End of the World, which is a great book, but also The Entangled Life by Melvin Sheldrake, which is all about mushrooms and kind of, mycorrhizal systems. And he, for instance, he speaks about mycelium a lot, but he also speaks of mycoremediation, which I think is really interesting too. So where you can actually train the fungi to well, to clean up waste basically. So fungi that live off cigarette butts or that clean up oil spills.
Well, Poppy just put in the chat, fungi can also play an important role in filtering and cleaning water and soil-based pollution. Possibilities are
Once you get
endless.
into the world of fungi, you become completely obsessed.
Mushrooms can rule the world. Mushrooms and bees, that's all we need.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a bit more into design, but I hope it works. I put in a link from Klarenbeek. You know him.
Yeah.
He was on Dutch Design Week last year, and with a building and furniture and all. It's very interesting to see.
Good grief, there's an entire building.
Yeah.
How does it have any longevity?
It's a super strong material.
It doesn't disintegrate in the elements?
No, I mean, it also depends. I mean, it depends on a lot of things, on temperature, humidity, whether it's treated or not. So, I mean, this is what you feed it with. You know, you can really make it tailor-made to your needs in that sense.
Incredible. So Poppy says a new local company are going to be selling home grow kits, fat fox mushrooms. Brilliant.
Nice. Yeah.
So for people who are left, I don't know if we will have to draw this to a close. I know it's just so interesting. It'd be nice to go on forever, but we've all got to leave. But would anybody like to use this moment as a bit of a chance to say anything that's coming up for you or something?
Well, I've got a question. Yeah. I've got a question for Yasmin.
Yeah.
I'm doing a blog. It's a new concept on which I want to create a platform where all kinds of initiatives are combined. And the goal is a positive future. So it's not only on climate and not only on art and design, but a bit broader. But I'm doing a blog on the Futures Material Bank and it's one of the first blogs because I think it's perfect for the concept. It's how do you say? It represents the concept beautifully. But the Materials Bank, the information on the website, it addresses artists especially. But a lot of designers have that material. And it's a way of how you want to communicate it, of course. But do you also want to address designers to submit? Because that's important for the way how I communicate it, of course.
Yeah, of course. And I think, like, for me, this boundary is quite blurred between designers and artists.
Yeah.
And I think why maybe the aesthetics or the way of speaking or the profile is more aimed at artists is mostly because there is a lot of really amazing also material banks just for artists and just for architects and designers. Sorry. So places like Materia, Materiom, Material Districts, Material Driven. Like there's a lot of them. But they're often much more like you need to have a membership or it's like I said, it's more towards the industry and scaling up. But in principle, there's a lot of amazing initiatives out there, and it's just a matter of bringing it together. And what's interesting also, like since we launched, which is only like a month or something, it's like a really recent thing, is that we've been approached by galleries, like art galleries and art institutions and art academies, saying that they want to develop like either a curriculum or an exhibition, and with a lot of other material banks, that knowledge or that visibility wouldn't really travel the same way. So it stays much more within that sector. So I guess that's a little bit what the difference is. But for me, there is no boundary between that's the artist and that's the designer.
No, for instance, you've got Living Color from Laura.
Yeah.
With the Puma designs and all. So yeah, it's a very thin line, the design and art sector.
Yeah. And science also.
Yeah, science too. Yeah. Well, those are the things I want to combine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I got stoked on your concept, and I asked Klein for the information. Unfortunately,
I already in touch. Yeah.
Ask the designers themselves for material images, and I haven't got really much reply, so that's a shame, but I will send it through.
Yeah, like I said, we're a little bit overloaded at the moment. Plan is working 4 hours a week for this, and so we're a bit swamped, but I guess that's a positive thing that there is so much interest. So just be patient with the replies.
Yeah, no, it's gonna work out. So it's not launched yet. So everybody who's interested, it's called Cabinet, but I will launch it the coming month. And I aim for Europe. So I hope to first organically grow it, but next year make it more professional. So thank you very much. Thank you. Also luck with the Future Materials Bank.
Thank you.
Monique, do share a link for your blog in the chat if you have one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just about to say, the same.
It's not finished yet.
But
so you have to bear with me, please.
Mark it ready.
We should probably wrap up, but I want to just check if anybody else has anything urgent or pressing they'd like to share about your work.
So
do you know? Sorry, Eleni?
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
How do you make a photographic emulsion out of cabbage? I'm just interested if it's possible to say.
Yeah, but it's quite a technical process. So I think Christoph Franke, the artist, he's actually doing his whole PhD on this, because there's again a lot of different recipes or things to take into account. So I would let me just send his website, because he would be much better at answering that question, or at least looking up.
Yeah, that would be lovely. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, he's a researcher and teacher at the Lucas School of Arts, also in Belgium. I'm gonna send the link in the chat.
Great.
Yeah. So if I go that.
There it is.
Absolute treat today, and to have music as well. We were a bit nervous about how we do the sound and things, so Api, thank you for showing us how it can be done. It was, live music at the moment, as we know, is quite an exceptional, rare thing, so thank you.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Thank you, Yasmin. Thank you, Lola. Thank you, Api. And I think we should make sure that the entire webinar goes viral, because it seems a shame that's other people around the world haven't been able to appreciate it. So let's share it far and wide when we have the recording. Laura, do you want to wrap up on anything for artillery? And
yeah, I will definitely circulate the chat and the recording for you all and for anyone that couldn't make it. And then, yeah, as I say, if you are thinking about getting involved in our festival in June, let us know and we can let you know more about how we're thinking it can take shape. And I think, yeah, we'll let you all go, but it is hard to leave, actually. I would really like to pop to the bar and get us all a drink now and spend the evening discussing all of this, but it's late where some of you are, actually, and we probably need to, yeah, get some tea and things, but thank you all very, very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody, and lovely to see you.